Hi there, MMS. This is lesson 6 of chapter 4, and we're getting kind of close to the end of the chapter. There's 3 more lessons, lesson 6, lesson 7, lesson 8. So as we're getting close, you should start to review your chapter 4 notes. Go back and rewatch any videos, any lessons that you might need to review to help get you ready for the test, which will be coming in a few days, pretty soon. Okay, the first key vocabulary word, we're going to learn for most of you what will be a new word today, and that is the word reciprocal. So practice saying it a few times. Again, the way you say this word is pronounced reciprocal. And what a reciprocal means is any two numbers any two numbers with a product of 1. So any two numbers that have a product of 1 are reciprocals of each other. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and then I think you're going to see the pattern pretty quick. So the number 3, which we also have learned, I can write a whole number 3 as a fraction by putting it over 1. So that's a whole number 3. And I could also put that number over 1. So I'll make that a dashed line just to show that I could do that if I wanted to. Times 1/3 is 3 over 3, which is 1. Here is another example. 2/5 times 5 over 2 is 10 over 10, which is 1. So these are examples of reciprocals. Three, or 3 over 1, and 1/3 are reciprocals, and 2/5 and 5 over 2, or 5/2, are reciprocals. So I'm going to highlight those. Those two numbers are reciprocals, and 2/5 and 5/2 are also reciprocals. So I think you can now see the pattern. The pattern is if you have a number like 2/5, the reciprocal of that is flipping the numerator and the denominator. And if you had a whole number like 3, you could also change that to 3 over 1, and you'd flip those numerator and denominator to make that number's reciprocal. So I'm going to write that right here. Flip the numerator and flip the numerator and the denominator to make a reciprocal. So N for numerator, D for denominator, these switch places. That is how you find a number's reciprocal. Flip the numerator and the denominator. So that's probably a new vocabulary word for most 6th graders. Never heard of reciprocal before. but we're going to use the reciprocal of a number when we're dividing by fractions. So going back to today's learning target, if you have a whole number, you're going to be able to divide by a fraction after today's lesson, and this is the strategy. So some of your practice problems today are finding reciprocals, so it's just the numerator and the denominator switching places is how you would do that. And then the other half of your practice is solving problems like this. 5 divided by 2/3. Well, this is a whole number divided by a fraction, exactly what our topic is today. And here is your strategy. So you're going to rewrite the problem as whole number as a fraction times the reciprocal. So here is your strategy for all your problems today where it's a whole number divided by a fraction. So you are going to first rewrite the whole number as a fraction. You are then going to change divide into multiply. And the last thing is you're going to change the fraction to the reciprocal. So here's what that looks like all together. 5 divided by 2/3. Here's our example. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to follow this right here. The whole number you're going to rewrite as a fraction. So the whole number is going to become 5/1. Divide is going to change into multiply. And 2/3, we want the reciprocal of 2/3. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. And now I can multiply numerators and denominators. So 5 times 3 is 15 over 1 times 2. I would get 15 halves, and that's an improper fraction, so I would want to switch that to a mixed number. How many times does 2 go into 15? That answer is 7 times, with 1 left over, and my denominator remains 2. The answer would be 7.5. So 5 divided by 2/3, the answer to that is 7.5. So again, whole number, change to a fraction. Divide, your divide right here changes to multiply. And then the last step, the fraction you're dividing by gets rewritten as its reciprocal. So this part right here, 2 kinds of practice problems today. Finding reciprocals is part of your practice, and then whole number divided by a fraction is your other part of your practice, and you're following these steps right here. Whole number, rewrite it as a fraction. Dividing gets rewritten as multiplying, and then the fraction, you're changing that to its reciprocal, and then you're multiplying numerators across, denominators across, and simplifying. Okay, that does it for lesson 6. Your mystery hidden treasure today, I'm just going to say it out loud at the end. I don't have a sign for it, but it is, go to page 46 in your workbook, and it is Power Up question number 17. Anybody who has that explanation ready next lesson will win the treasure if I call your name. That's it for lesson 6. I'll see you real soon for lesson 7.